As usual, every night Albert sat in front of his computer, immersed in the digital world. While browsing through articles on the internet, he suddenly came across something that caught his attention. Curiosity began to grow, making him eager to learn more about what he had just discovered. With excitement, Albert began preparing the necessary items. His hands trembled slightly, a mix of excitement and tension, as he gathered the materials according to the instructions. Tonight, he was determined to uncover the secrets hidden behind the invisible world. Albert began to cover his eyes with a piece of black cloth. The surroundings grew quieter, only interrupted by the slow ticking of the wall clock. With his left hand, he sprinkled a bit of salt, following the instructions from the article he had read. The salt felt cold and gritty against his palm. In his right hand, Albert held a small knife, carefully taken from the kitchen. Although his fingers trembled slightly, he tried to stay calm. The combination of this ritual felt strange and tense, but his curiosity and adventurous spirit drove him to continue. Now Albert stood in front of his bedroom door. Holding his breath, he knocked on the door 3 times. Each knock echoed in the quiet night. With a trembling voice, Albert said, "Is there anyone there?" The atmosphere felt silent, with no sign of anything appearing. Albert felt a bit nervous, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. With a pounding heart, he slowly opened his bedroom door. The door creaked softly as it opened, and Albert began to step inside cautiously. Each step felt heavy, as if there was a pressure enveloping the room. Albert inhaled the cold air inside the room, sensing the increasing tension. With his eyes covered by the cloth, he moved slowly, ready to face whatever might happen in the darkness of the room. Albert sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, trying to calm himself. The only sound in the silence of the night was the ticking of the wall clock. Each second felt long, and the atmosphere in the room grew increasingly eerie. Albert tried to ignore the anxiety troubling his mind. With his left hand still holding the salt and his right hand ready with the small knife, he focused on the ritual he was performing, waiting patiently in the soothing darkness. Suddenly, the sound of the door opening softly filled the room and the door creaked slightly ajar. Albert was startled and his body broke out in chills. Fear enveloped him and he felt his body trembling uncontrollably. Albert's eyes peeked out from behind the cloth, nervously staring into the darkness. The ticking of the clock grew increasingly ominous. With his heart racing, Albert tried to stay calm, attempting to face the rising tension around him. Albert gathered the courage to open his eyes. With trembling hands, he slowly lifted the cloth from his face. The darkness in the room felt suffocating, and his heart pounded heavily in his chest. After a few seconds, his eyes began to adjust to the dark atmosphere. Albert carefully inspected every corner of the room, anxious and hopeful. The silence was profound, interrupted only by the monotonous ticking of the clock, which seemed to add to the eerie feeling. Albert focused his gaze on the slightly open door. Shadows from the moonlight seeping through the crack danced faintly on the walls. However, no figure appeared and no sound other than the increasingly loud ticking of the clock was heard. A sense of relief slowly emerged, but an unsettling feeling still lingered. Albert remained seated on the floor with his back against the wall, trying to calm his still stifled breath. The surrounding silence felt heavy, as if something was hidden in the shadows, waiting to emerge. Carefully, Albert shifted his gaze from the door to the other corners of the room, remaining vigilant for any unexpected occurrences. Although no figures were visible, the tension in the air made him feel as though he was being watched. He tried to stay calm, despite the growing unease of the night. Albert finally gathered all the courage he had to step out of his room. Holding his breath, he peeked into each room, hoping to find something that would send shivers down his spine. Albert's eyes searched the darkness behind the open doors, but all he found was an eerie silence. The ghost he had heard about wasn't there. A mix of disappointment and relief washed over him. With trembling hands, he put down the knife he had been holding and removed the black cloth he had used to cover his eyes. "I knew it was just a lie," he whispered to himself. Albert stood at the sink, cold water rushing over his hands, as if trying to wash away not just the dirt, but also the fear lingering in his heart. His voice trembled as he said, "But for some reason, I still feel terrified to do it." With steps that felt heavier than before, Albert turned and walked back to his room. Each passing second seemed to add weight to his shoulders, as if time itself was conspiring to deepen the tension he felt. Albert climbed onto the bed and lay down wearily. He stared at the ceiling with a vacant look, as if trying to find answers among the faint lines on it. His thoughts whirled in chaos, struggling to make sense of everything that had just happened. Suddenly, a wave of anxiety washed over him. He felt as if he had forgotten something important. Albert lay there, anxious, trying to recall the missing details while hoping to find some peace before sleep took over. Albert suddenly remembered he had forgotten to turn off his computer. With a soft groan, he got out of bed and made his way to his desk. His steps felt heavy, and his half-closed eyes added to the sense of exhaustion that enveloped him. At the desk, Albert pressed the button to shut down the computer. The bright screen dimmed and then went off, leaving the room in silence. After making sure his computer was completely off, Albert walked slowly back to bed, yawning and feeling very sleepy. As Albert walked back to his bed, he suddenly felt a gripping sensation, as if something dark and heavy was creeping into his heart. Anxiety and discomfort enveloped him deeply, making each step feel increasingly heavy. Suddenly, Albert froze in the eerie silence, his body paralyzed in the middle of the room. In an instant, something truly horrifying appeared before him. A terrifying ghost stood right in front of him, with long tangled hair as if it had just risen from deep darkness. Its face was pale. The ghost's eyes were lifeless and filled with a terrifying darkness, staring at Albert with a cold, piercing gaze that seemed to penetrate his soul. Albert felt his breath catch and his heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst from his chest. The atmosphere around him seemed to freeze in an oppressive darkness, and the air felt cold and heavy, making every second feel eternal. The ghost emitted a foul, penetrating stench, and Albert felt as though his entire world was collapsing in a paralyzing fear. Thank you so much for watching our video on For You. We truly appreciate your support and hope you enjoyed every moment of our content. If you found the video entertaining or a bit thrilling, don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear what you liked or any topics you'd like to see in future videos. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our latest videos. We have lots of exciting content coming up, from reviews of the latest horror films to thrilling paranormal adventures and fun entertainment that's sure to make you laugh. We also invite you to join our passionate community. Follow us on social media for the latest updates, behind-the-scenes content, and closer interactions. We believe the journey is more exciting when we can share experiences and stories together. Once again, thank you for joining us. See you in the next video. Stay enthusiastic and enjoy the world of entertainment and horror with For You.